I was just like really rushing to, you know what I mean? Like to get ready, so.
Both of these on?
Really?
Because I had to do David's interview fucking 3 times because I had that mic off.
Oh my God.
So
oh my God.
Home and like I'm like, this interview is killer.
Oh no.
And, like we couldn't hear a word because my.
Oh wow, that's disappointing.
All right, so above and below interview number 1 with Michelle.
Hi.
So Michelle, where are you from?
Austin, Texas, born and raised.
Austin, Texas.
Yes, unicorn.
All right. What was Austin like and your childhood like when you were growing up?
Austin was so much cooler than it is now. I mean, music scene was fantastic, like any day of the week. If you wanted to go to a show, I mean, you still can pretty much go to see a band any day of the week. It was a lot different than it is today. I mean, I grew up with no internet, you know what I mean? So it was a lot harder than it is today to find good music, which was what my childhood was mostly comprised of, you know, punk bands, going to punk shows, stuff like that, parties. As far as like, you know, drugs go and stuff, I started smoking weed when I was 15 in high school. And dropping acid on the weekends. Acid was like the drug of choice. Did it every weekend. Never was a big drinker. Didn't like drinking. My friends would drink. I just didn't like the taste of alcohol. I mostly, when they were drinking, I would just smoke weed. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. You know, I dropped out of high school when I was 17. Because a guy I had a crush on, his name was Scuzz. He was going to Seattle and I wanted to go with him, so I dropped out of school. I wasn't going to graduate anyways because there's too many absences, so I decided to go with him to Seattle. And went to Berkeley, Seattle, Portland, and really loved it. Decided I wanted to travel all the time. I also, when I came back to Austin, I, was homeless for a little while, but not because I couldn't go back to my mom's house. I could have, but it was just more punk rock to be on the street and squatting in and then doing whatever I wanted to. So that's what I did. Traveled again. Some friends of mine were going to Colorado. I jumped in their car. We started it across the country from Austin to Colorado, where it broke down in a blizzard. Then caught a ride to Boulder, hung out there, went back to this small town, panhandled that town to get our car fixed, and then from there went to Chicago, Minneapolis, Seattle, Portland, back to California, back to Austin.
So were you doing, like, have you started using heavy drugs?
Not yet, not yet. A little, I had done heroin a couple times, but I definitely wasn't anywhere near strung out. I did get a boyfriend in Minneapolis who was doing heroin regularly. He OD'd while we were in Minneapolis, and he decided he was going to come back with me to Austin. He came back to Austin, decided there wasn't enough dope here, so he went back to Minneapolis, and that's when I started really getting into heroin here. I mean, it's hard for me because it was so long ago to like get my timeline straight on exactly what happened when. Sure. But I know that between when I came back from that road trip, between over the next few years, I did get strung out on heroin. I went to rehab multiple times. I tried to kill myself twice. Once, when I was still living at my mom's house, when she found out I was strung out, I told you before, she told me if I got a job, my uncle was a heroin addict. She knew that he could fix every morning and go to work every day, and she said, if you're going to be a junkie, you need to get a job. And so I did. I got a job. I fixed every morning, and I was also selling heroin out of my mom's house. My heroin dealer turned me on to what he called Belushi's, which is cocaine and heroin, speedball. He turned me on to that, and I mean, that was the beginning of the end for me. I mean, as far as my life goes, everything I did revolved around cocaine after that. I mean, I would if I couldn't find cocaine, I would buy crack. I wasn't smoking it. I was breaking it down with vinegar or lemon juice and shooting it up. And I hated it. I hated my life. At one point, I got half a gram of heroin. I tried to OD at my mom's house. The next day, I woke up with her knocking on my door. Somebody was there to score. I was so mad that not only was I still alive, but I had done all my heroin, and so I didn't have any more heroin either.
You tried to OD and
Yeah.
you went out. And
Yeah.
You woke up.
I woke up.
Your mom was pounding on your door, and she's like, "Someone's at the door."
Yes,
Girl.
exactly. I was mad. And that was first of 3 suicide attempts in my life. The next one was the night before I think it was my 25th birthday. Somebody had given me money to score for them. I went to the dealer's house and he didn't have any. All he had was crack, so I spent part of their money on crack. I had an abscess on my arm at the time, which was my very first abscess that I'd ever gotten. It was making me really sick. So while we're waiting for him to re-up, I went into one of his bedrooms, into one of the closets, and went to sleep. So the person whose money I had at some point went and knocked on the door looking for me, and my dealer thought I was gone. He didn't know I was asleep. He's like, "She left." Eventually, when I did wake up, I didn't want to face the person who I'd ripped off. I hated my life anyways. So I scored and I took the dope and I went underneath the Mopac Bridge and I shot up I fixed up an entire gram, which at the time prices were a lot different than they are now. A gram was like $200. That was $20 pieces of dope. So I fixed up the entire thing and I tried to shoot it up, but before I even depressed the plunger the entire way, I was out. Woke up the next day on my birthday, still alive, angry as hell that I was still alive, walked down MLK. At the time, there was a rehab. Austin Recovery was on MLK in Guadalupe in a mansion there. I walked in, I said, "It's my birthday. I tried to kill myself last night and I need help." I'm sorry.
You're good.
So they admitted me right away, of course. At the time, it was a lot easier to get in rehab than it is now. You could just, like I said, I just walked in and they took me in, but as was my MO, I didn't stay longer than in 3 days. Once I wasn't sick anymore, I left. Also at the time, detoxing off heroin was a lot different than it is now. There was no such thing as Suboxone. To detox off of heroin, they basically gave you a cocktail of like 7 different prescriptions, clonidine, Vistaril, a bunch of other.
Maybe.
Yeah. Oh, if you were lucky, no way. That's way too close to Valium. No, but they gave you basically enough medicine to like keep you knocked down for 3 days, and that's what they did then. But
So you tried to kill yourself, and you're walking down the street. And you see Austin Recovery, like, did you expect to see Austin Recovery? Or
I don't. Well, I had been there before. That was the second time I believe I had gone there, maybe the third. I don't remember if I was looking for it, or if I just saw it. I was like, "There's a syringe cap right there on the ground." But and mind you, I was high as hell the next day. I stayed high for like the next 24 hours. I was nodding out in rehab like 24 hours after I got there because I had done so much dope. As a matter of fact, my boyfriend at the time, when I left 3 days later, I found my boyfriend on the street and I told him, "Look," he was like, "Where have you been?" I was like, "I was in rehab. I tried to kill myself." He didn't believe me. He was like, "No, you didn't." I was like, "Yes, I did." And I told him where my dope. He's like, "Yeah, I went looking for you," because the place I had tried to kill myself was a place that we always went to fix at underneath the Mopac Bridge. And he said he went there looking for me, found my shot in the syringe, and did it. Imagine finding somebody's syringe with like used and just putting it in your arm, but not knowing whose it was or what was in there. You know what I mean? But he did it, and he said it kept him high for 24 hours. So there was a lot of dope in that point, a lot. Yeah, but they once again I left after 3 days.
You just were in the detox. You didn't go to the residential program.
No. I went to Austin Recovery in my life like 13 times total. The first
It's
4 or 5
now,
times.
Right? The one you're talking about?
Yeah, it's not even across the creek anymore. It's at the ramp. Well, it's not even open anymore. They shut it down. But
I've
even
been to the one you're talking about, like
Austin Recovery.
Before it was Cross Creek. I went there like 3 times.
When it was on Guadalupe. or when it was, because it's moved, like, it was there, and then the detox went to Cross Creek, or whatever, Cross Creek?
Yeah, they
Cross
called it
Point.
Cross Creek.
Was it Cross? Oh, okay. Is that what it's called?
This is before it was Cross Creek. It was Austin Recovery.
It was actually Austin Recovery Center. It was ARC.
Then they would ship you to the ranch.
Yeah.
In there.
They shipped the guys to the ranch. So the women would stay there.
Yes.
And then after that, a few years later, then the women would go to the ranch also. Everyone would go to the ranch. But yeah, the detox was always at Cross Point? Cross Creek?
Cross Creek.
Yeah, same rehab. Same rehab. It was just, at the time, it was there at that mansion place on MLK, which happened to be where I sold dope at and where I ran. It was the Guadalupe. So it was right there where I did all my using at. So it was just too easy for me to walk out and be right there on the drag. You know what I mean? Because it was right there on the drag. So it wasn't really a great location for somebody trying to get away from it. You know what I mean? It was much better out at the ranch or even way up north on Cross Creek because, yeah, being that close to the drag was just too easy for me to leave. And I did every time. I never stayed the entire time that it was there. I never managed to make it through. It wasn't until it was at Cross Creek that I managed to make it through the program for an entire 30 days, you know, which I did a few times. But at that time, you know, I was like 22, I think. No, that was my 25th birthday. Was it 25? I guess, like I said, it's hard for me to keep the timeline straight. I do know that it wasn't until many years later, after I had gotten sober for even a minute, for a little while, but then I had gone back to using again. I was back on the street because back then when I was selling on the drag, it hadn't really gotten, even though I tried to kill myself, so you think it must have been pretty bad, but it was still, I don't know. It got worse. You know what I'm saying? Like, I thought it was bad then. It got worse because at one point, I had a friend who came to score for me, and she was like, hey, you want to make $200? You know, all you got to do is go give this guy a blowjob or whatever, and you make $200. And she's like, I had it scheduled, and I don't want to do it, whatever. I didn't, and it was so easy. It like took 15 minutes, you know what I mean? And I had enough money where I didn't have to go sell dope the rest of the night. And like at some point when I was selling dope, once I started doing cocaine, I got so paranoid that I couldn't meet people anymore. Like I couldn't meet them at the store. I would be so scared that they were a cop or they had a cop with them, you know, like shooting that much coke that I didn't want to meet people anymore. So going on, started working for this escort service that my friend was working for, basically. It was a dominatrix. Her name was Mistress Leyland. It was a dominatrix service, and because of my hair, at the time I had purple and green dreadlocks, because of my hair and my tattoos, she basically wanted to just send me on dominatrix calls, which for me, kind of, to be honest with you, I preferred the straight sex calls more than the domination calls because the dominatrix calls were long. They were drawn out, and you had to be creative and come up with an entire scenario, and they took the entire hour. As far as the straight sex calls, I could go and be done in 5 or 10 minutes sometimes. Right. Same amount of money, you know what I mean? But I could be in and out.
What was the wildest thing that you ever encountered with the dominatrix?
The dominatrix.
What was the wildest call you ever went on? What was that like?
It was a long time ago. It was over 20 years ago, but I mean, I can remember there was, the grossest one was this guy who was on a bunch of meth, and he wanted to be a girl, he wanted me to treat him like a girl, so I had to have a strap on, and that was just gross for me because the motel room just smelled terrible. It smelled disgusting. I hated it the whole time. The easiest money I ever got was this guy that wanted me to pee on him, though. He just laid in his bathtub, I peed on him, and I got my $200 and split. Actually, that was easier. There was easier ones than that, because I did actually make a really good friend who, he was from New York, and one day I was walking down the street with a bunch of balloons, and it was my birthday again, but he stopped me, and I was dope sick. He stopped me, asked me what I was doing. I was like, today's my birthday, and I don't feel good, and he wanted me to get him some crack. And he was like, I will buy you some heroin if you can get me some crack. And I was like, yeah. So he gave me $100 to get some heroin and some money to get him some crack. I met up with him later, smoked crack with him. He bought crack all night long. And, because I started smoking crack once my veins were so bad that I couldn't shoot it anymore. I learned how to smoke it, and then I got to the point where I enjoyed smoking it. So, Yeah, he would come into town and I would just score for him, and he would pay me to smoke with him. Basically, he'd give me cash because he knew I needed heroin. So he'd give me cash, and then he'd pay, and like I would basically get high all night with him, and we became good friends. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that was probably the coolest money that I made.
Like a relationship with you?
No, he didn't.
No,
he didn't. He really just wanted somebody that wasn't going to rip him off. You know what I mean? Somebody, a girl to hang out with. He did. I mean, he wrote a song about me. It's on YouTube. And it's Punk Rock Dominatrix, name of the show. It's got some great pictures of me from back in the day, and the lyrics are really awesome. And they're pretty much about the life that we had, you know what I mean, once he'd met me. It was cool. He was a good guy.
Did you like doing that?
That, like, with him, I did.
No.
In general, no. I wasn't, like, in my own life, like the nomination said, and that's not my thing, you know, and...
Or even, like, just the normal, conventional escort calls.
Yeah, I didn't like it, but it was easy money. It was easy money. There were times where it was terrifying. Like, I remember once, and the guy still paid me, but he let me leave. I was so scared because I walked in and his couch and floor was covered with plastic. He had taped it down. I was like, this guy's going to kill me. He brought me here to murder me. He he asked me to put on this white t-shirt and then come to the bathroom with him. I think the whole thing just had something to do with probably water, some kind of water fetish, but I was so terrified and I was so high that I couldn't stop shaking because I was scared, and I was like, I can't do this, and he's like, go, you can go. And I just left, and like I totally thought I was going to get murdered. And also, you know, it got to the point sometimes where like because I used to shoot up in my chest. Once I had an abscess in my boob that was so big I couldn't work, and also I got so terrible looking in my addiction that the mistress that I was working for didn't want me working for her anymore. So there was times where I was just basically a street walking prostitute, and multiple times doing that I was picked up, raped, you know what I mean, like multiple times. I was also kidnapped once, tied down, beaten so badly, like my ocular bone was broken. A dude tied me down onto a bed. You know, I kicked out the window hoping that my boyfriend would drive by and hear. And the dude just started beating me, you know.
And this is just from like street walking.
Yeah, that guy in particular was he was a schizophrenic who I stayed with every once in a while because I knew he had a crush on me. And he'd get his check. I guess, I'm not going to say I had it coming, because I don't think I did, but I did kind of fuck him over a little bit a couple of times. Like, he would get his check, and I'd be like, hey, give me some money, I'm going to go get some dope, and I'll come back. And I would tell him that I was going to sleep with them. But I didn't. I would never come back, because he would give me the money and let me leave, and I would just never come back, and I did that to him twice. And so this last time I went there, and he was like, you're not going anywhere, and he tied me down to the bed. And that's when he took out my clothes, and he was going to rape me. When I kicked out the window, he started beating me in the face. So,
how many times have you been raped?
You know, I couldn't even tell you right offhand, but I can think of 4 distinct times, like specific times. It's 4 times that I can remember, and twice, like once this guy, we drove into the woods because he was a trick, right? And when we got in there, he just started punching me in the face. Like, he took me out of the truck, started punching me in the face. And I said, just go ahead and have sex with me. And he was like, I'm not going to fuck you. I'm going to kill you. And I was so scared. I had a syringe in my pocket. I took it out and I tried to stab him with it.
And of course, it fucking banned.
Well, I didn't even hit him. He was a huge guy. I didn't even hit him with it. And the look on his face, he was so shocked. And he was like, he tried to stab me with syringe. I'm like, dude.
Insulin needle?
It was like, yeah, it was just a U100. Yeah. You know what I mean? I said, he looked at me like, you tried to kill, you're trying with syringe. I was like, you're beating me up. And the way, at the time, I had a bunch of scabs on my face because I had a real bad thing smoking crack and picking up my face. And so I had scabs on my face, and I was like, dude, look at me. I'm a junkie. I said, this is AIDS. This is what AIDS looks like. I was like, go ahead and fuck me. You're going to get AIDS. And he was like, get the fuck out of here. And I took off running in the woods. I mean, I don't have AIDS, but I used that.
That was quick. It's called thinking on your feet.
Yeah. And Yeah, he let me go. He let me go.
Oh my gosh.
That was probably the scariest moment of my life right there when I was in the woods with that guy, because I was in the woods. He could have killed me and nobody would have ever known. Nobody would have ever known who it was. They would have never found him. There's no possible way they would have known who did it.
I mean, I'm sure he's done it to others.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the same
might not have been as lucky as you.
There was another time that I was in the truck with this guy. For some reason, like, we're in the middle of the act, and for some reason I started getting scared. Like, to be honest with you, I thought he was gonna like try and like fuck me in the ass. And so I tried to like stop him, and I was like, hold on. And then he just started punching me in the face. And like, I started laying on the horn with my foot. And that's how he managed to let up, and I got to get out of the car. But I'm like walking down the street, down Congress with one shoe on. My whole face is beat up. I'm walking down the street, this guy pulls over and he's like, do you want to ride? And I was like, yes. And I get in the car and I'm just like, just take me home. And I was staying on Congress and Ben White at the time in this little weekly hotel. And I'm like, just take me up the street. It was only a couple blocks from where we were. And he's like, cool. All of a sudden he turns off, pulls behind this store. He's like, I was like, can you take me home? He's like, I'm going to take you home after you suck my dick. And he grabs my head and he starts pushing it down. And mind you, my whole face was swollen like out to here because I had just been beat. And then, I mean, I just couldn't believe, I could not believe that this was happening to me. I fought like you wouldn't believe. I mean, I like almost poked this guy out. Finally, he just stopped and said, get out. And I got out of the car and he drove away because he could,
like trying to fight him.
I fought him so fucking hard, like
fighting with you?
He was a little taken off guard. Like, I think he thought I was just going to do it because I was so beat up already. He thought, oh, this chick's she's a victim. You know what I mean? And so he saw a victim and thought he could victimize me further. But I refused to like go down like that. Like, I had my finger in his eye socket. You know what I mean? Like, the other guy had an advantage on me because he already had me he was already on top of me and I was face down. You know what I'm saying? But this guy, I was sitting there looking at him. He did not have the advantage. And he was also not a big guy. He was little. What's funny part is that same person tried to pick me up 2 more times. I couldn't believe it. His name was Cowboy. I even saw him on the street sometimes. And I mean, I at the time, I had the mentality like, I can't tell the police because I'm a prostitute. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't until later on that I realized, like, when that dude had taken me into the woods, that I found out the cops said, look, just because you're out here doing this doesn't mean anybody has the right to rape you or take anything from you. Like, you still need to let us know what's going on. You know what I mean? But at that time, I didn't want to tell the cops. I just wanted to go home. You know what I mean? Like, but I actually saw him I saw him scoring crack at my dude. And I told other people that way. I said, that guy tried to rape me before. Not him. Oh, no way would he do that. I was like, okay, whatever. Like, I knew that no one would believe me because I was just a hooker. You know what I mean? And a crackhead.
Being, like, experiencing those things that you've experienced as a sex worker, like the people who are abusive, just, has it changed the way that you think about people, and like, does anything surprise you anymore?
I mean, it wasn't even, that didn't surprise me as much as the way people like in my own scene treated me when I was at that point in my life. Like, I'm born in this town, and I've been in the punk scene, since I was 15 years old. When I was out there, like, on Congress, that time in my life, the people that I knew in the scene, like, wouldn't even talk to me. You know what I mean? Like, they treated me like I was, I don't know. To be in an alternative scene where you're supposedly open-minded and on the fringes of society, and, like, that's him look down on somebody who is whatever they might be doing. You know what I mean? That hurt me more than any of the other things did, because I felt like the whole reason I got into like punk to begin with was because I felt accepted there, you know what I mean? And for that scene to turn its back on me hurt more than any of the other stuff did, that was hard.
I know. I'm sure your friends, people that you think are your friends, turn their back on you.
Yeah.
I know.
That was rough. And like, what's funny is, I think when I was,
it probably like added to, like, fueled your addiction, and because it hurt you so bad.
yeah, and it's like, I think probably one of the reasons I got into heroin to begin with was because I thought it was punk. You know what I mean? Because so many people in that scene were heroin addicts, and I thought that was just one more layer of like, now I'm a real punk rocker. You know what I mean? Like, that's how dumb my thinking was, but I was a kid. I was, 18, 19 years old. I didn't know any better, and I just really wanted to belong, to be honest with you. And that's another thing, when I started selling heroin, I never felt, I'm not saying I got a big head, but there's like, back then, heroin wasn't as readily available as it is now. Well, now you can't even find heroin now, but it's all fentanyl. But I'm saying back then it was like, you really had to know someone to score, you know what I mean? And so only certain people had it. There was times where even I personally had to wait like 8 hours to get to score, you know what I'm saying? And so me selling dope, when I show up someplace, no matter how long I had let those people wait, they were always happy to see me when I got there. You know what I mean? There's a certain amount, and that feeling, especially at that age, did something to me that, like, it felt good. You know what I mean? Yeah, it felt good. It felt good for people to, like, want me there so badly. I had places to stay. I was selling down on the drag, and like, these college kids were letting me stay at their apartment even when they went out of town, just because I had dope. You know what I mean? It's nothing. I never had known anything like it. It just felt good to be wanted that way. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think that's one of the reasons that got me into it. But anyways, so yeah, that's where I was at with that. I don't even remember what we were talking about, to be honest with you. You have to ask me another question. Oh, my suicide attempts and stuff.
And sex work.
Oh, yeah.
And then, the people who turn their back on you in the punk scene.
Yeah.
And how your substance abuse, like, evolved and what it did to your life.
So at one point I tried, I had an ex-boyfriend who lived in San Antonio. We had used here in town. We had been together off and on, a couple times, using, not using. But he was living in San Antonio, and I was on the street, and he told me he wanted to come pick me up and take me to San Antonio to help me. And I said, okay. Well, first I said, okay, and I went with them, and I came back the next day. And then I said, okay, I'm ready. And he came in and got me, and I stayed there for a year and a half. I kicked in his apartment, and I got a job, Sam's Burger Joint, and I stayed there. I was never sober. I just kicked heroin. Then there was a house like just a couple blocks from his. I don't know how I found out, but I found out that they were selling like these $10 balloons out a back window. It was like an abandoned house, and you just went up to the window and you knocked on the window and you just stuck your hand out. They stuck their hand.
It's a real trap.
Yeah, and they sold $10 balloons of cocaine and $10 balloons of heroin. You know what I mean?
You didn't use heroin?
I was in San Antonio.
Wow.
I had never used it there.
You were just getting coke?
No, I was using heroin and coke. That's what I'm saying. I was using them both. I mean, I went there to kick.
Sure.
I kicked, and I wasn't using heroin anymore until I found that house. You know what I'm saying? And like, I was still every once in that's when I started drinking heavily. Like when I was in San Antonio. Well, actually, there was a couple times I started drinking heavily. The first time I kicked, I was I think I was 25. My mom was in Tennessee on business. I took a bus up there, and I took one balloon with me, and I stayed there for 2 weeks. And when I got there, she took me to HEB and bought some Tylenol PMs, and I kicked on her couch with those Tylenol PMs. I took the balloon. I did the balloon one day. I did the rinse the next, and then I started on the Tylenol PMs. You know what I mean? And I stayed there for 2 weeks, and that's the first time I kicked. When I came back to Austin, the first thing I did when I got back was go get a balloon. But I did it, and it made me feel sick and disgusted and bad about myself. And I said, that's it, I'm done. And I stayed done for a while. I got a job at this telemarketing place. I took the bus, 2 buses. I got up, and it was dark outside still, sleeping on my mom's couch. She had a condo. I would get up, and it'd still be dark, and I'd take 2 buses up to Riverside and Riverside, where this new Emos is now. It used to be the back room that was there at the time, and there was a telemarketing place right next to it. And I got a job there, and I had been on the street for so long, like hustling and stuff, that I was really good at it. After 2 months, they took me off the phones and they made me a manager because I had more sales than anybody in the room. You know what I mean? I was able to like talk people into shit, you know what I'm saying? Because I had been on the street for so long, and so...
Able to talk people out of their money.
Exactly. So so they made me a manager. I didn't have to sell anything. I just had to have this headset on and listen to other people, and I was a coach. And I coached them on how to make more sales. So I was doing that 9 to 5. Well, being the first time off of heroin in my early 20s... Oh, yeah, about 25 or 26, I think. Anyways, I decided to start drinking, right? So it was right next to the back room. At 5 o'clock, I'd get off work. I'd go next door to the back room. The only drink I could stand the taste of was cherry vodka sour. That's all I would drink. And this place, the back room, had the best drink specials in town. I don't know if you remember it, but they had 10-cent wall night. They had $1 long neck night. They had $2 pitcher night. Every night was a different drink special, so it was cheap to go. Then I started dating like the lead bartender there. So I would work 9 to 5. I'd go to the back room, drink all night, close down the place, and get up the next day and do it all over again. So, but in the back room, like the thing there was Coke, and it was really shitty cocaine. As a matter of fact, I'd walk in there and I knew my stomach would go, and I had to go straight to the bathroom because it was like cut with baby laxative, and it was just my stomach knew what was coming. Yeah. But so first I was just snorting it. Then when I started dating that bartender, he did this thing called foils, like where you take the Coke and you mix it with baking soda, you put it on a foil, and it's like mix of foil or something. And I was like, dude, let's just smoke crack. And I taught him how to make crack. And sometimes I just buy crack, and he was like, "It's so much better than that foil." You know what I mean? So I started smoking crack. Eventually, that led to heroin. Eventually, and I wound up not losing that job. I went and got a job at Progressive after that because I had so much experience, and I was nodding out. At some point, I was like, "Oh no, I'm starting on heroin again." So I got on methadone for the first time, and I would still stay up all night smoking crack. I'd go get my methadone, and then I'd be at Progressive in my little cubicle, just like nodding out. At times, I'd get a call from like management because you didn't even see the managers really. Like there were so many people there, but they'd be like, "What? You've been on that call for 45 minutes. What's going on?" I'd be like nodded out, or like because I was still in training, you had to do like so many pieces of what they called pieces of pie. Once you did enough pieces of pie, you'd be out of training. So you'd like just have to write down like what you did for each call. Like I added a vehicle to this person's policy. You'd have to write it down or whatever, and you turn it in. That'd be a piece of pie. So sometimes I'd get stuff back with just question marks on it because I'd look at it and literally, instead of like words, it would just be scribbles on the pages. I wasn't writing, and I thought I was writing shit down, I guess. And I was like, wow, of course I wound up losing that job for too many absences, but just the stuff that you think you can get away with. You know what I mean? You don't realize what you're doing. I couldn't believe I thought I was pulling that shit off. I was not.
What do you think about your life then compared to now?
Oh my God. I mean, I honestly didn't think I was going to live to see 30 back then. And that's one of the reasons I went as hard as I did, because I was like, what does it matter? You know what I mean? I'm not going to live to see 30. I had Hep C by the age of like 23. You know what I mean? I didn't think I was going to live past. I was just doing so much fucked up shit. I tried to kill myself for the third time when I came back from San Antonio, because that guy that I was with in San Antonio, I wound up one day after I lost my job there and when I started using heavily again there, one day when he was at work, I took his car, came back to Austin and just never went back. You know, the funny thing is I ran into that guy like 10 years late, like a few years ago, and we got back together again. After I stole his car and never went back. He didn't even care. He just wanted me back. But he wound up ODing and dying. Like, that's the last boyfriend that I had that died. I had 3 boyfriends in my life that died while we were together. One of them got murdered when we were out on the street. He got stabbed to death. I went and found his body in the parking lot. And then the next time I had a boyfriend who got cancer and watched him die. And then Ryan, he OD'd in his bathroom. He's the one in San Antonio. He was in San Antonio still, and that was rough. You know what I mean? So I've experienced a lot of death. I know that doesn't have a lot to do with your question, but
how have you been able to like deal with your substance abuse and like keep it at bay?
You know,
Like live a happy life.
that's a good question. I mean, I don't know if I've ever really dealt with it because, you know, even to this day, I mean, I'm on methadone. You know, I don't think that. I mean, obviously, I'm not completely substance free. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm on methadone. But it's a hell of a lot better than the alternative for me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even think that I could even maintain on heroin for a while. You know, and I did that for a while. But, like, the last time I got strung out, I was working still. And I was just fixing. What really fucked me up more than anything that made me unable to function was cocaine. You know what I mean? Like, that's what really set me off. And something happened in my brain. It chemically changed to, like, I don't want that shit anymore. Like, it doesn't feel good. I don't enjoy the high. Something happened. It just changed. And I mean, that's really, I feel like that's what has saved me. You know what I mean? Because none of the other things ever did. I always went back to it. But something happened to where, like, now I could take a hit of crack and be like, that didn't even really get me high. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it is what it is. It didn't really do shit. I don't even see what the attraction is to this shit. I really don't, because my brain has changed.
Right.
Thank God. Thank God. You know what I mean? I'm so grateful for that, because that's really what's been able to function. It's not been the treatment. It's not, and I have done all those things, you know, and I've tried all those things. Something always took me back to the dope, though. My mom calls it the call of the wild. You know what I mean? Something always takes me back.
Where do you want to see yourself in, like, if you could have it the way you wanted it in 5 years? What would you like be like? I
mean, you know, to be honest, I don't like being on methadone now because it's just another ball and chain. You know, I fell in love with traveling at a young age, and that had to stop because I used to go to New Orleans every year for Mardi Gras, and a lot of my traveling friends we'd all like meet up there. One year I went with not enough heroin, and on Fat Tuesday I ran out and I was dope sick. Couldn't find any dope there because it was Fat Tuesday. And I said, I will never leave Austin again as long as I have a habit, because it was horrible. I hate being dope sick. You know what I mean? And especially when you have money and you can't find any dope. It's the worst. And I haven't left Austin since. You know what I mean? So methadone is the same way. Like, it's such a hassle to be on it, because you got to go to the fucking clinic every single day. You know what I mean? I've been on methadone now for over a year. Even with clean UAs, I still have to go to that clinic every single fucking day, and it's still a ball and chain. You know what I mean? Like, I can't leave town without making sure that I have enough methadone, or making sure that the clinic is set up in another town for me to get courtesy dose. And I'm terrified something's going to happen and I'm not going to be able to get dose. Someone's going to steal my methadone and I'm going to be sick. And being on methadone is harder than being on heroin, because the kick is harder. You get sicker. You know what I mean? It's harder to get off of. Your body, you feel the ache in your bones. You know what I mean? Like, being methadone sick is way worse than being heroin sick. But I refuse to do heroin anymore. Can't even find heroin in this town anymore anyways. Thank God I got off of it just before the fentanyl took over. Yeah, because I was, you know, up until a year ago, I have stopped mainlining heroin a long time ago without many veins, but I was muscling it for 2 years, like the last 2 years before I stopped. And I don't know, just from what I don't know a lot about fentanyl as far as like using it to know how bad the kick is or any of that, because I never have been a user of it. Like, a couple times I've gotten dope with fentanyl in it, but I've not ever, you know, sought it out or wanted to be on it or anything like that, because I've just been scared it's going to be harder to fucking get off of, you know what I mean? And
it's not fun.
Yeah, and I mean, like,
it's not cool. Heroin's not like it was 15.
Yeah, I mean, not like it was ever really cool, but at least you had like that dreams.
Decent high.
Right. Like, you had those like dream states that you got into, right? Like, yeah. I don't want to go, if I want to pass out, you know what I mean? I'll take some sleeping pills. Like, what fun is passing out?
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's not a fun high. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man. I just, so I would definitely, and like, I would love to be off of everything. I've done it before. I know it can happen. It's just, so that where I'd want to be if I had my way, I'd want to be able to be free from all that so I could travel again, you know?
Yeah. Just like you said, it can be done.
Yeah.
And like, I'm I'm the same. I have substance abuse disorder, and it's something we deal with, you know? I'm not crazy like I used to be, but I still have things I deal with, you know?
And so it's so hard, like, because I feel like I've come such a long way from that person who was on the street. You have to pardon me. I'm like,
no, you have. Look,
I'm can cry at a drop of a hat. I swear to God. I don't know why I'm getting so emotional.
Well, it's emotional.
I know that I've come such a long way, but like being on methadone, I feel like I'm still treated like I'm the person that I was. I'm like, I feel like I'm still treated like I was that hooker, you know what I mean? Like I was 20 years ago.
But you're not doing
I'm not
you used to do.
Absolutely not.
You know that you're not the same.
I have 3 jobs now. I work my fucking ass off. I have a fantastic work ethic. I work really hard. I have an apartment. I'm not on the street. I drive a nice car, but I still feel like I'm treated like I feel the same. Like I'm treated the same by people, even at my own methadone clinic. You know what I mean? Like they accuse me of tampering with my UAs. You know what I mean? I always thought if as long as I did the right thing, that people would see that and I'd be treated accordingly. But the fact that when I do the right thing and I'm still treated like, I just feel like I might as well be shooting dope still.
Well, if
I
you were
feel
doing
like
that, then you wouldn't have any all the stuff that you have now, right? I mean,
maybe. Maybe. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows?
Kicking ass to me.
Thank you.
You know.
I appreciate the fact that you see that. It's just like when the people in power don't see it, it hurts. You know what I mean? Even though I know I'm doing the right thing, I don't know. I'm just dealing with a lot right now. It's like my methadone clinic. They like.
Are you talking about your LCDC counselors?
No, yeah, I'm talking about the methadone clinic in general. Like, you know, you're supposed to do these certain things before you get take home so you don't have to go to the clinic every fucking day, which is hard. When you have a job, you know, it's hard to drive across town to get your medication every morning before work. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I'm late to work like every day because of it. Mm-hmm. You know, and
it happened to me too.
Yeah, and it just sucks that the people at my methadone clinic aren't empathetic to that. They're not sympathetic to that. I mean, they're like, I don't know. I just like, I think that they think it's impossible that you could be doing, that you're not using drugs. So we just are assuming that you tampered with your UAs. Like, no, I'm just not using drugs. Like, I don't know what it is that they
and even
see.
If you are using a little bit, whatever it may be, a drink or a fucking Valium,
no,
you're not fucking shooting speedballs in your neck,
right? And I'm not shooting heroin, and honestly, the rest is really none of it is. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not completely sober. You know, I believe 100% in the efficacy of psychedelics, and I do them. I do mushrooms all the time. I like DMT. I eat edibles. I don't smoke weed, but that's just because it's just too strong these days. I can't handle it. It's way too strong, but I do enjoy edibles a lot. You know what I mean? And those keep me, sometimes they keep me to where I really don't give a fuck about anything, but they also keep me to where I don't want to go do other things. Like if I were ever thinking like maybe it might be cool to go do, as long as I've got edibles, they make it so, I don't know. don't know.
Maybe in 6 months, if you're down, we'll do like or like 4 to 6 months, we'll do a follow-up interview.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you'd like to.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have any like burning desires or shout-outs or advice to give somebody that was in the maybe feeling the way that you felt as a kid?
I mean, to be honest, okay, so like I didn't have a terrible childhood. I really did drugs because I liked the way they made me feel. You know what I mean? I like the feeling of being high. It's not because I was trying to escape an abusive, parent or anything like that. I mean, I do have the stereotypical daddy syndrome, you know what I mean? Like daddy syndrome, my dad wasn't there or whatever. So I looked for love in all the wrong places, you know what I'm saying? Like, but as far as like the drug use goes, I really did like to do it socially. Like I liked the way it did make me feel good. And because I didn't like drinking, I liked the way drugs made me feel better. I think everything in moderation is fine, you know what I mean? But I just don't think that like letting anything be the controller of you is where there's an issue. Like when you stop having a say in your own life, that's when it's a problem. Like I couldn't do things because I had to get dope first. You know what I'm saying? Like I had to have dope or I couldn't get out of bed. Like having that, like I was a slave to a substance, which is really sad. It's really sad.
To a little piece
little
of tar.
little piece of doo-doo. Yeah, piece of doo-doo. So that's bad. But as far as everybody else goes, like trying to like fuck what everybody else thinks of you. It doesn't matter. You are the only one that has to live with you and your whole life. And these people, more than likely, the people that you care about what they think, they're not even going to be around. You're not even going to see them years from now, but you still got to live with yourself. You know what I mean? So yeah, and it took me a long time to do that. You know what I mean? I still struggle with that a lot. I still struggle with thinking I'm good enough. All the time. So that's something I myself need to work on. It's hard for me to say what other people should do when I can't even tell myself to, you know what I mean? But it really is about loving yourself and realizing that you are enough, just the way you are. You don't have to change anything.
That you know that is like,
yeah.
You're on your way.
Yeah.
You're killing it. And
thanks, Jay.
Love you. This is an awesome interview.
I'm glad you think so.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I get so upset.
Killed it. So, maybe follow-up interview sometime?
Yeah, whenever you want.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right. Awesome. Rock out, Michelle. We'll see you in a little bit.
Okay.